Tom Miller had been a firefighter for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The dog wasn't just showing him fires. It was as if he was an old firefighter, using the same tactics, running to the same places. And when Tom saw something familiar in the dog's eyes, fear struck his heart. Captain Tom Miller had been retired from the Riverside Fire Department for 6 months. In his 30-year career, he had extinguished thousands of fires and saved countless lives. But now at 58, he lived alone in a quiet neighborhood, trying to fill his empty days. "Retirement isn't for me," Tom would mutter every morning while sipping his coffee. He had lost his wife Margaret to cancer 5 years ago. They had no children. His only friends were his old colleagues from the fire department. But they were still on active duty, while Tom was now sidelined. What he missed most was his partner Jake Wilson. He and Jake had worked together for 15 years. As a duo, they had gone to the city's most dangerous fires, saving each other's lives multiple times. But 3 years ago, on that cursed night, everything changed. The apartment fire on Pine Street. There were families trapped inside. Tom and Jake had gone in together one last time. Tom came out alive. Jake didn't. "I should have died instead of him," Tom thought every night. Guilt consumed him. That cold November evening, while Tom was watching television, he heard a strange sound. A dog was barking at his door. "Who's this?" Tom muttered as he opened the door. Standing before him was a medium-sized golden retriever with golden fur. The dog looked calm but determined. It was wagging its tail, looking at Tom as if he were an old friend. "Hey buddy, where are you from?" Tom asked. The dog barked as if wanting to answer and entered Tom's house. The transition to retirement had been brutal for Tom. For 3 decades, his life had revolved around alarms, emergency calls, and the adrenaline rush of saving lives. Now, the silence of his empty house felt suffocating. His days had become a monotonous routine of coffee, television, and haunting memories. The local news still covered fires he could have been fighting, emergencies where his experience could have made a difference. The guilt over Jake's death had created a wall between Tom and his former colleagues. When they visited, conversation felt forced, weighted down by what had happened on Pine Street. Tom knew they didn't blame him, but he blamed himself enough for everyone. Tom searched for the dog's owner but couldn't find anyone. The dog's neck was bare, and there were no missing pet notices. It was as if he had come from nowhere. "I can name you Blaze," Tom told the dog. "Because there's fire in your eyes." Blaze adapted to Tom's house as if he had been living there for years. The strangest thing was the dog's interest in Tom's old firefighting equipment. Blaze would sniff Tom's old uniform in the garage, touch his helmets, and lie next to his firefighting boots. As if he recognized these items. "This dog is very strange," Tom thought. "It's like he understands firefighting." But the really strange thing happened on the 3rd night. While Tom was in deep sleep, Blaze woke him up. The dog was barking restlessly, trying to get Tom out of bed. "What's wrong, Blaze? Why are you so restless?" Blaze pulled Tom outside. He stopped in the dark street and began barking toward a specific direction. "There's nothing there," Tom said in confusion. But 10 minutes later, fire sirens began coming from the direction Blaze had pointed. A house 2 streets away had caught fire. "This must be a coincidence," Tom muttered. But the next night, the same thing happened again. The dog's behavior around the firefighting equipment was uncanny. Blaze seemed to understand the purpose of each piece of gear. He would gently mouth the oxygen mask, sit perfectly still when Tom showed him the radio, and even respond to basic firefighting commands Tom had used with Jake. "Stay back," Tom would say during their backyard training sessions, and Blaze would immediately move to a safe distance. "Search," Tom would command, and Blaze would systematically sweep the area with his nose. It was impossible. No civilian dog should understand firefighting protocols so intuitively. After the second incident of Blaze sensing fires beforehand, Tom was beginning to be certain. This wasn't coincidence. On the third night, Blaze woke Tom up again. This time he was even more restless. He grabbed Tom's hand with his mouth and pulled him outside. Okay, I'm coming, Tom said. Blaze led him to the factory district 5 blocks away. He stopped there and began barking toward the factory building. Is there going to be a fire here? Tom asked in amazement. Blaze wagged his tail as if saying, yes. Tom called the fire department. Hello, this is Tom Miller. Retired captain. I think there's going to be a fire at the factory on Pine Avenue. Captain Miller, how could you know? It's a long story. Please check it out. Half an hour later, a fire broke out in the factory due to an electrical short. The fire crews intervened in time because they had been warned in advance. This is impossible, Tom thought. How does the dog know about fires beforehand? But the real shock was Blaze's behavior at the fire scene. The precision of Blaze's predictions was becoming undeniable. The dog didn't just sense fires randomly, he knew exactly when and where they would occur. His restlessness would begin hours before the first spark, his anxiety escalating as the moment approached. Tom began documenting the incidents. 3 fires predicted with perfect accuracy. Each time, Blaze's behavior followed the same pattern: intense focus, urgent barking, and specific directional guidance. The fire department dispatcher had started recognizing Tom's voice. Captain Miller's calling again, she would announce, and crews would roll out without question. Tom's credibility from 3 decades of service bought him trust, but even he knew how insane it sounded. At the factory fire, Tom had brought Blaze with him. The dog's behavior amazed Tom. Blaze acted exactly like a firefighter. He knew which side of the fire was more dangerous. He showed the firefighters which angle to aim the water from. This dog has seen fires before, said Firefighter Martinez. Not just seen, Tom replied in wonder. It's like he's had firefighting training. Blaze knew at which point of the fire the temperature was highest. He guided the firefighters to the right places. He even showed where the fire had started. Captain Miller, where does this dog come from? Asked Chief Rodriguez. I don't know. But he's like an old firefighter. After the fire was extinguished, Blaze came to Tom's side. And when Tom looked into the dog's eyes, there was something familiar in those eyes. Determination, courage, and an expression similar to Jake's. This is impossible, Tom whispered. But Blaze's behavior was increasingly resembling Jake's. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Blaze positioned himself exactly where Jake used to stand during fire operations, upwind from the smoke, with clear sightlines to multiple exit routes. He showed the same protective instincts Jake had displayed, positioning himself between Tom and any potential danger. When the incident commander gave orders, Blaze's ears would perk up with the same attentiveness Jake had shown. The dog seemed to understand radio chatter, responding to codes and terminology that even some rookie firefighters struggled with. Most unsettling was Blaze's tactical knowledge. He guided crews away from walls that were about to collapse, steered them clear of areas where backdraft was likely, and even indicated the safest approach routes to the building. This wasn't instinct, this was experience. After that night, Tom began observing Blaze more carefully. And what he noticed terrified him. Blaze behaved exactly like Jake. Jake's way of sitting, his walking style, even his head-tilting movement. They were all present in Blaze. Tom looked at old photographs. Jake's love for dogs was famous. He would pet the stray dogs that came to them after every fire. Jake loved dogs very much, Tom thought. And dogs loved him too. But the most surprising thing was Blaze's reaction to Tom's old photographs. When Tom brought out photos taken with Jake, Blaze behaved very differently. He approached the photos and sniffed the parts where Jake was. And then, he began to cry. There was such a thing as dog crying, and Blaze was doing exactly that. He looked at Jake's photo and sobbed. "My God," Tom whispered. Do you know Jake?" Blaze looked at Tom. There was deep pain in his eyes. But also, love. Jake's love. The emotional response was overwhelming. Blaze didn't just recognize Jake in the photographs, he mourned him. The dog would gently paw at Jake's image, whimpering with a grief that seemed far too profound for a random stray. Tom brought out more photos, testing his impossible theory. Pictures of the fire station, group shots of the crew, action photos from various fires. Blaze showed interest in all of them, but his focus invariably returned to Jake. In one particular photo, Jake's official portrait in dress uniform, Blaze's reaction was most intense. He stared at the image for long minutes, occasionally touching his nose to the glass, as if trying to reach through to the man who could no longer be reached. An impossible thought was beginning to enter Tom's mind. What if Blaze wasn't just an ordinary dog? What if Jake's spirit had somehow returned? This is nonsense, Tom told himself. I'm not a scientist, but this is impossible. But the evidence was mounting. Blaze knew all of Jake's habits. He wanted Jake's favorite foods. He lay on the chairs where Jake used to sit. The most surprising thing was Blaze's behavior when they went to the fire station. "Hello, Captain Miller," said Chief Rodriguez. "You brought Blaze too." The moment Blaze entered the station, he walked straight to Jake's locker. That locker contained Jake's personal belongings. Blaze sniffed Jake's old shoes. He rubbed against his uniform. And he sat next to Jake's favorite coffee mug. "This dog knows Jake," said Firefighter Davis. "He's acting just like in the old days." "Jake loved dogs," said Chief Rodriguez. "Maybe this dog remembers him." But Tom knew this wasn't just remembering. This was Jake. The station tour revealed more impossible connections. Blaze knew the layout perfectly, navigating to Jake's favorite spots without guidance. He sat in Jake's chair in the briefing room, positioned himself at Jake's usual spot during equipment checks, and even knew which apparatus Jake preferred to ride. The crew watched in stunned silence as Blaze performed a ritual that Jake had done every shift, walking the perimeter of the station, checking each bay door, testing the tension of hoses with a gentle bite that Jake had taught the newer guys to use. "He's doing Jake's inspection routine," whispered Martinez to Chief Rodriguez. "Down to every detail." The dog even knew Jake's personal quirks. Jake had always tapped the side of engine 7 3 times before climbing aboard, a personal good luck ritual. Blaze did the same thing, rising on his hind legs to tap the exact spot where Jake's hand would have touched. Tom brought out the box where he had stored Jake's personal belongings after his death. Inside was Jake's diary too. The lines Jake had written on the last page of the diary made Tom cry. "Tom, if something happens to me, I'll continue to be by your side. Because we weren't just work partners. We were brothers. And brothers never abandon each other." Tom's hands were trembling. "Jake, is it really you?" Blaze sniffed the diary and looked at Tom. Jake's warmth was in his eyes. That night, Blaze slept next to Tom. Just like Jake used to do. And Tom slept peacefully for the first time in 3 years. But the next night, Blaze woke him up again. This time it was much more urgent. Blaze pulled Tom outside and pointed toward the hospital. There was going to be a big fire there. And when Tom called the hospital to warn them, he learned there really was a problem with the electrical system. "You came to protect me, didn't you, Jake?" Tom whispered. Blaze wagged his tail. The diary revealed more than just Jake's final words. Tom found detailed notes about fire safety, observations about building vulnerabilities, and most importantly, Jake's theories about intuitive fire detection. "Some buildings feel wrong," Jake had written. "You can sense the danger before the science catches up. It's in the air, the way sound carries, how the structure settles. Good firefighters develop this sixth sense. Reading Jake's words while watching Blaze, Tom realized the dog was demonstrating exactly what Jake had described. Blaze was reading environmental cues that humans missed, subtle changes in air pressure, electrical fields, chemical traces that preceded combustion. But it was more than learned behavior. Blaze possessed Jake's intuitive understanding of fire, as if 30 years of firefighting experience had somehow transferred intact. From that day on, Tom and Blaze became an unofficial fire prevention team. Since Blaze sensed fires beforehand, Tom would warn the authorities. In 6 months, they prevented 15 fires. They saved hundreds of lives. Captain Miller's dog is a miracle, the fire department said. But Tom knew this wasn't a miracle. This was Jake's love. Blaze didn't just protect Tom during fires, he also gave him joy for living. Tom was no longer depressed. Jake's spirit had returned to him. "You didn't leave me alone," Tom would tell Blaze. "You're with me in a different form." Blaze would wag his tail every time. The most beautiful moments were in the evenings when they watched television. Blaze would lie at Tom's feet just like Jake used to do. "Jake, I missed you so much," Tom would say. And Blaze would rest his head on Tom's hand. Their partnership developed its own rhythm. Tom learned to read Blaze's warning signs, the subtle changes in posture, the specific type of whimpering, the way his ears would swivel toward danger that hadn't yet manifested. The fire department began consulting them officially. Chief Rodriguez created a new protocol: when Captain Miller calls with a blaze alert, dispatch immediately and treat as confirmed emergency. The success rate was unprecedented. 0 false alarms, 15 major fires prevented, estimated property damage avoided in the millions. Insurance companies started asking questions. Fire marshals wanted to study their methods. But Tom deflected all scientific inquiries. Some truths weren't meant to be dissected in laboratories. Some bonds transcended rational explanation. Tom's old crew wanted to meet Blaze. They organized a big reunion at the fire station. "This dog really resembles Jake," said Captain Stevens. "He doesn't just resemble him," said Firefighter Martinez. "He exhibits the same behaviors." Blaze sat in front of old Jake's desk. Everyone was amazed. That desk was Jake's special place. Chief Rodriguez was moved. If Jake were here, he would love this dog too. "He's already here," Tom whispered. Blaze greeted everyone in the old crew. As if he knew them. And everyone saw Jake's warmth in the dog's eyes. "This dog is special," said Captain Stevens. "Jake's spirit lives in this dog." Tom knew he was no longer alone. Jake was still by his side. The reunion became an emotional celebration of Jake's memory. Stories were shared about Jake's legendary intuition, his uncanny ability to predict fire behavior, his protective nature toward his crew. "Remember that warehouse fire on Industrial Boulevard," said Martinez. "Jake made us wait outside for 2 extra minutes because something felt wrong. 10 seconds after we would have entered, the roof collapsed exactly where we would have been standing." Blaze listened to every story with what seemed like recognition, his head tilted in the same contemplative way Jake used to listen to mission briefings. When they showed Blaze Jake's commendations, medals for bravery, certificates of life-saving achievement, the dog's response was profound. He approached each award with reverence, gently nosing the frames as if acknowledging accomplishments that felt personally meaningful. The biggest test was the Pine Street fire, Tom's nightmare. Exactly 3 years later, there was another fire in the same place. Blaze was very restless that night. He woke Tom up and took him to Pine Street. "No," Tom said with a trembling voice. "I can't go there." But Blaze insisted. He pulled Tom's hand and took him to the front of the old apartment. There was a fire inside. And there were people trapped. "I can't go in," Tom said. "Jake died here." Blaze looked at Tom. There was an encouraging expression in his eyes. As if saying, "You're not alone, I'm here." Tom took a deep breath. He called the fire department and waited with Blaze. When the fire department arrived, Tom helped them. But this time he wasn't alone. Blaze was with him. When the fire was extinguished, everyone was saved. Tom's fears had passed. "Thank you, Jake," Tom whispered, "for giving me courage." The Pine Street incident marked Tom's psychological breakthrough. For 3 years, he had avoided the sight of his greatest trauma, the place where survivors' guilt had taken root and grown into a paralyzing fear. But with Blaze beside him, Tom found the strength to face his demons. As they stood before the burning building, Tom realized that Jake wouldn't want his death to end Tom's ability to help others. During the firefighting operation, Tom found himself naturally falling into his old rhythm, assessing conditions, anticipating problems, guiding the younger firefighters with the wisdom of 3 decades' experience. Blaze stayed close, providing silent support and an almost mystical sense of protection. When the last victim was carried to safety, Tom felt a weight lift from his shoulders that had been there since Jake's death. The apartment building still stood, scarred but not destroyed, much like Tom himself. After that night, Tom accepted the truth. Blaze might or might not be Jake's spirit. But what mattered was that Tom was no longer alone. Blaze didn't just show him fires. He gave him joy for living. He reminded him of Jake's love. "I don't know who you are," Tom told Blaze. "But you're my lifesaver." Tom was no longer depressed. He was enjoying retirement. And most importantly, he was honoring Jake's memory. Thanks to Blaze, they had prevented more than 20 fires. They had saved thousands of people's lives. Jake always saved lives, Tom thought. And now he continues to save them in a different way. The fire department appointed Tom and Blaze as honorary consultants. They now had official duties. And Tom knew that Jake's spirit was at peace. Their success brought unexpected recognition. The mayor presented them with a Civic Achievement Award. The state fire marshal invited them to conferences. National media wanted to feature their story. Tom accepted select interviews, always emphasizing fire safety education and prevention. He never discussed the supernatural aspects of Blaze's abilities, instead focusing on the importance of community vigilance and early warning systems. "The real heroes," Tom would tell reporters, "are the firefighters who respond to our calls. We just happen to have unusually good timing." Blaze would sit calmly during these interviews, his dignified presence lending credibility to their remarkable track record. To the public, they were simply an observant retiree and his well-trained dog. Tom preferred it that way. 2 years passed. Tom and Blaze had become the city's most famous fire prevention team. The media loved them. "What's this dog's secret?" journalists would ask. "His secret is love," Tom would answer. "And friendship that never gives up." Blaze had aged but his strength had never diminished. He still sensed fires beforehand. He still protected Tom. The most beautiful moments were in the evenings when they visited Jake's grave. "Hello, old friend," Tom would say to the headstone. "I brought Blaze to see you." Blaze would sit by the grave, as if talking to Jake. "You never left, did you?" Tom would say. "You just continued to be with me in a different way." Blaze would wag his tail. And Tom knew that this friendship hadn't ended with death. Jake's love continued to live in Blaze. With every fire they prevented, with every life they saved, Jake's spirit was with them. "Together forever," Tom would say. "Because true friendship never ends." Blaze would rest his head on Tom's hand and breathe peacefully. They both knew this story didn't end here. They would prevent many more fires, save many more lives. Jake's legacy would continue to live in Blaze. Forever. The partnership had evolved into something larger than either Tom or Jake could have imagined. Their fire prevention work had inspired other retired firefighters to form community watch programs. Fire departments across the state were implementing early warning protocols based on their model. Blaze had become a symbol of hope for the firefighting community, proof that the bonds forged in service could transcend even death. Young firefighters would visit them, seeking wisdom about building the kind of partnership that could last beyond a single lifetime. Tom would share Jake's lessons: trust your instincts, watch out for your partner, never let fear override duty. And he would watch Blaze demonstrate these principles with every protective glance, every alert to danger, every moment of unwavering loyalty. As the years passed, Tom understood that he hadn't just gained a remarkable dog, he had been given a second chance to serve, to save lives, and to honor the memory of the best partner a firefighter could ask for. Whether Blaze was Jake's spirit, a miraculous coincidence, or something beyond human understanding didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that love had found a way to continue its work, and that work would go on as long as there were fires to prevent and lives to save. Tom and Blaze's story shows us that love and friendship are stronger than death. Jake's spirit continued to live in Blaze, protecting not only Tom but countless people by continuing to save lives. This story also shows that we can find meaning in life even in retirement, that memories of our loved ones can strengthen us, and that sometimes there can be miraculous connections in animals that we cannot explain. If this touching story has also touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Because in the magical world of animals, many more mysterious and hopeful stories await you. Share your experiences with us in the comments. Have you ever felt moments when you encountered the spirits of your loved ones? Until we meet in the next video. Because the most beautiful bonds transcend time and space.